Hi there. Welcome to the You Can Mentor podcast. This is Zach, and I'm with my friend Courtney. Courtney, how's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Is it Courtney Krus? Is that how you say it?
Courtney Cruz.
Cruz.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was
It has like
close.
that a better ring to it, Zach,
Yeah,
Courtney
right.
Cruz is pretty nice. Yeah.
Courtney Cruz is I
It's a
mean,
good one.
that's a bold name you got going on there.
Yeah, well, it's a new one within the last year. So
Okay,
yeah, so I
congratulations.
fully embrace it.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I am going to introduce you. So I found this nice little bio on your website. So here we go.
All right.
Courtney Krus is the Executive Vice President of Client Success at NextAfter.
Yeah, I'm just executive vice president at NextAfter, and I oversee.
Executive Vice President. All right, sweet.
Yeah.
Well, she is in charge of all of the strategy and testing and optimization within fundraising programs, ultimately helping not for profits find more names and donors and support for their cause. Um, Prior to serving with NextAfter, she led digital marketing and fundraising for a not for profit. And we're super excited to have her here. So thanks
Great.
again for taking time, Courtney.
Absolutely.
So tell us a tad bit about NextAfter.
Sure. Yeah, NextAfter is a digital first fundraising agency. So what does that mean? Well, we lean into digital to help lift all channels in revenue for nonprofits, and we do that really kind of in three ways. We are a research lab, which is unique and different, I think, within our space. So we do forensic research and applied research, as in we'll become donors ourselves and understand what's happening in the nonprofit space. How are organizations actually, acquiring new donors, treating those donors, communicating with them, all of that, to understand what's going on. But we then take that and say, okay, well, what's effective, what's not, and so that goes into our applied research where we're testing, emails and landing pages, donation pages. Paid media ads, you name it, we're testing it. We believe that there is no such thing as best practices, and the reason why we believe this is that we have to let our donors actually tell us what is most effective, most motivating to them. We can't just apply, something because someone somewhere told us to do the thing. We want to actually see if it resonates with our donors because, donors for one organization are going to be radically different in their motivation to another. And so that's our research side. And then we've got an institute. Our institute is kind of our ministry to the nonprofit space because we know we can't work with every nonprofit. We love to just open source all of our research. And so anybody can access all of the learnings and research that we've done, on the research side from our website. We do conferences and webinars, you name it. We're trying to get all of this data and insight out into the market so that more people can learn and so we can ultimately grow generosity. And then the third part of our company is our consultancy, where we are, actively working day to day as an extension of a nonprofits team. So we say growing names, donors, and dollars. Pretty simple, but you get the idea. That's how fundraising works. And so that's our role as an agency, is to come alongside the organization, build and grow and sustain a fundraising program for nonprofits. So
That's awesome, Courtney. Now, I have been familiar with NextAfter since they've started because the two guys who started it are some of my good friends. But can you just kind of tell us some of the not-for-profits that you have worked with?
yeah, I think again, another thing that's a bit unique for us is that because our vision is to, increase generosity around the world, we don't just work in one vertical. We only work with nonprofits, but we don't work in just one vertical. So we're working with organizations from, lots of faith-based organizations. Maybe it's TV, radio broadcasts, to even like emergency relief, like a Save the Children, to Catholic organizations, to higher education institutions, to public policy, maybe even NPR stations or PBS, you name it. We're trying to work within all verticals just so that we have an understanding of what's happening in the nonprofit space. And again, because we want to grow generosity, we don't want to just grow it in one vertical. And the reason for that is um, that not every donor is for every nonprofit for every nonprofit.
Yeah.
I will say my personal background is in the faith-based space. I came from a ministry that did radio and broadcast and was a higher education organization, and so my background really is within the broadcast space. So that's kind of, I would say, where my heart is at, from a ministry perspective, because I understand it so well. This, you know, intersection of faith and broadcast and content and all of that. So that's really what I'm probably most passionate about in the work that I get to do. So,
That's awesome, Courtney. So today we are talking about end of year giving. So we
oh,
are coming upon that Christmas season to where
it's
people
the
love
season,
to give gifts and people love to give gifts, maybe even some donations. And
right?
so our goal today is to help not-for-profits, anyone who they might have an end of year campaign, they might not, but we are going to be focusing on that today. So can you just start us off by just sharing like why is an end of year campaign important, and all of that good stuff?
Yeah. So year end is it is literally at Christmas time. But it kind of is like Christmas for nonprofits. Or if you want a sports analogy, like it's the Super Bowl of fundraising, and for good reason. And it's actually my absolute favorite time of year. Folks who are in fundraising and work at nonprofits probably might be cringing or are nervous or kind of like shrugging their shoulders, of what do I do? And I find it thrilling, for many reasons, but I would say to see donors respond at this time of year is so empowering and such a reminder of like why we exist. I work with a lot of ministries who sometimes fear about asking for money, and I understand that. There's a lot of people will try and throw maybe even scripture at that, or but my lens is that, like, giving is ministry, and our job as marketers, fundraisers, nonprofit employees and leaders is to empower our donors to give, to help them to give to the organizations that they care so deeply about. And year end is the best and perfect time to do that. We have a ton of data at NextAfter that really show what's happening in the nonprofit space, and specific to year end. We just released our year end benchmarks. So I'll even send that link out to you, Zach, so you can share it, because I think it's really, really insightful to see what's going on.
Oh, it's
Have
so
you
good.
seen it?
Yes, yes, like it is remarkable. I'm like, oh my gosh, like all of this is happening and all of the data, and I was like, oh wow, maybe I should send that email, or maybe I should make that ask at that
Oh.
time, or maybe I should say this and not say that. But
Right, right,
um,
right. But I
it's
mean,
great.
even just the latest data I saw from that benchmark, it changes here and there, but like 20 to 50% of revenue for nonprofits is being brought in during year end. 20 to 50. Yes, I know that's a large range, but take even on the low end of 20%. Man, like, it's a do or die, for a lot of organizations. And when we say year end, it might be good to kind of talk about like timeline. Like, what do you mean by that? Is that just, December 31st? No, like, we actually look at year end from November 15th all the way to December 31st. And the reason for that is we like to include other special giving days like Giving Tuesday. Even Thanksgiving is a part of year end. Um, so that's kind of the critical importance, is the fact that 20 to 50% of your revenue is going to come in during year end.
That's a ton of money.
It's a lot. It's a lot. No pressure, you know?
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Um, okay, so if someone out there, let's say that maybe they haven't taken it super seriously, or they don't have like a specific kind of giving, like, hey, here are the one, two, three things that we're going to do. Tell me where someone would start if they haven't considered how to maximize end of year giving.
yeah. So I might take it from two perspectives. One is we're right on the brink of getting into year end, and two is to think about this even from a higher level. So I'm going to start with the higher level, then we can go a little bit deep into kind of where are we at now. So I want to make sure that everyone hears this is that, year end does not happen in a vacuum. And what I mean by that is the work, the cultivation, the stewardship, what you've invested in your programs, how you're talking to your donors, how you're acquiring them, how you're treating them, the whole impact of your year is really like the result of December. Because, sometimes we think that we need to get the thing out in market and at year end, and they'll respond. And there's a lot of merit to that. But, donors are people, and they're complex, and there's a lot of things, vying for their attention, and um, how we treat them leading up to the time we actually say, hey, will you support our mission? It impacts so much of the reality if they're going to give or not. So I just want to put that out there that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And so, think about that even as you get into January. Like, what are we doing as a program to be intentional and in stewarding and in cultivating relationships, so that when I go ask for a gift, their likelihood is so much greater because I've built that relationship up to this point versus just coming to them at a time when, quote, we need them. I think that there's a mental shift, Zach, that has to happen in the way that we look at fundraising. Is oftentimes it's like it's about us. And I just want to really encourage everyone to think about fundraising is about, again, like the donor, empowering the donor, helping the donor, equipping the donor, activating the donor so that they can give to us because it's important to them. We are just the benefactors of it. So, small soapbox, but I needed to go there.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. I know one of my favorite sayings is people give to people.
Yes.
And if the only time that they hear my name is whenever I'm trying to ask for money, or December 15th, like, oh, hey, by the way, I know that we haven't talked in a year, but I need X, that probably isn't going to work out super well.
Right.
But
Right.
if we can change from I need these people's money so I can do what I am called to do, to how can I encourage and how can I cast what the Lord has called me
Mm,
to do, and how can I invite them into this?
yes. Yes.
And so,
Absolutely.
because
We,
like people have, not everyone, but there's a large population out there who have money to give, and
sure.
they are looking for someone that they know. They're looking for
Trust.
someone that they trust.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I am looking for someone that I trust who is passionate about these one, two, three things. For us, it's mentoring, right?
Yes.
So they have to, or they want to give away those funds. They might as well give it to you, but you have to give them an opportunity to partner with you
Mhm.
as you try to do the Lord's work, because
Absolutely.
you won't exist without them.
Yes.
Because they're paying our paychecks,
Right.
and but it's a partnership. So people
Yeah,
give to people.
you got it. We use, kind of a funny analogy. I mean, maybe not so true now in my older adult life, but when you were moving from apartment to apartment as like a college student or a young adult, and you had no resources at your disposal but your friends, and you need to call up someone to help you move. It's like, hopefully you've got a relationship with them
Yeah.
before you say, can you help me move? Yeah, that's where you're going to, is the people that you've built relationships to, instead of just always asking. You don't want to be that friend who always has the pickup to move your things around. Move
Right.
your things around. Um, so that's kind of just like that bigger picture. And you're absolutely right, Zach, and people giving to people. And as we think about, where we're at now, and what do we do about this season? Where do I begin? How do I even start? A big thing I would just say is the channel of email could not be more significant to the outcome of your year end. Than anything, honestly, that you could do on your website or social media. Email is king when it comes to revenue for nonprofits. We've done a lot of studies, even looking at where does or where does revenue come from based off of channel to a site. So you've got lots of channels pushing traffic to websites, and direct and organic and search and paid media, you name it. And no matter what, even when email has the least amount of traffic to a website, it drives the greatest amount of revenue. And so where do you start is starting to think about your email strategy. And when I say that, I'm talking not just, okay, where and when and how do I ask? An email strategy has to be comprehensive in cultivation and appeals. Because again, relationship, you don't want to just be that friend that is asking, 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 asking. It has to be something, a value exchange. You have to be checking in on them, telling them that you're praying for them, asking them how you can pray for them, maybe giving them a resource. Maybe there's obviously Christmas season, man, there's so much content out there that could be developed, especially around with faith-based organizations, around the birth of Christ. And so, is it a short ebook that you could deliver to them? But the goal is cultivation and appeals. And I would start that in early November. Yes, I know we're like right on, like we're right here. We're in the moment, but don't delay. And I think so many people try to get it right. I'm going to tell you, just do it. Just go for it. Just start somewhere. And even if your first email is like a Thanksgiving email, like that's a great cultivation piece. And ensure that in that cultivation email, you have no link to give a gift. It is not about a donation. It is strictly about adding value and deepening that relationship, maybe starting that relationship with your program and that file and that person on the end of the email. And so that's the balance that I would look at, is just trying to understand the 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 division between cultivation and appeals. What I would recommend for that is about a 60-40 approach. So 60% cultivation, 40% appeal. That might be incredibly scary for some folks. So then maybe look at more of a 50-50, or flip it and do 40-60. But I tell you that percentage is so high because it's so important. We've actually run studies where we'll send an additional cultivation email for over a 6-month period. There was no additional ask. But at year end, by sending additional cultivation, more emails, yes, in the inbox, but their value add, they saw a 23% lift in overall revenue when it came time when you actually made the ask. So power and cultivation, can't underscore that enough. So email strategy is one. I think it's also like specifically as you think about when you should send them, and like time of day or days of the week. In our recent benchmark, we found that 52% of year-end emails were sent between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. Sure, it makes sense. Most people are in their inboxes. But Zach, if everyone is sending at the same time, how are you going to stand out and cut through the clutter? So our recommendation is actually to take maybe a diversified approach around when you send it. I think weekend emails are powerful, are magical. I was just talking with someone today. I received his Saturday email. And again, it's a cultivation email, there's no ask in it. I look forward to it, which is so weird. No one's really opening their inbox looking forward to it. And I think that's exactly why those are magical, is that there's so much being asked of people. And so what about giving to them during a time when they're like, active in their inbox, and maybe work isn't on the top of their mind. And so I would just consider, when else could you send emails outside of 8 a.m. between 12 p.m. if everyone else is sending during that time? We say cut through the clutter, because there's so much vying for people's attention, not just us as nonprofits, but man, think about even all of the like e-commerce sites and whatnot. So email king.
So I was talking about this with Jeff,
Mm.
who uh, is Jeff the president of NextAfter?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And I was asking him, this was probably 2020. I was like, dude, when should I send an email? And he's like, when do you check your email? I'm like, well, whenever I wake up. And he's like, tell me when. I'm like 5:30. It's like, send it at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I did, and I saw a jump. So like I typically send mine early, or I send
Mhm.
mine at like 8:30 at night, because whenever I put the kids down and I'm kind of trying to wind down, I always, before I go to bed, I always check my email, which is
Yeah.
probably a terrible habit, but um,
Like sleep sitting
or
around the back.
yeah, right. Or I send it at like 4 o'clock, because by
Mm.
4 o'clock I'm like tired and I'm burned out. I'm like, I'm just gonna check my email 18 times in half an hour, because I don't, because I'm tired.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Anything else there?
I mean, I think email's king. And then I would just think about like your donation page. I mean,
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of other elements like organic social, paid social if you can. I know that's really hard because it requires additional resources and investment. But like what else are you doing on your website? Maybe you could put a little banner at the top to even just capture some of that traffic coming to the site, making it easy to get to the donation page. And then the donation page, I would just ensure that if you don't have a dedicated donation page for your emails when you're asking for money, um, let's make sure that our primary donation page, the main donation page on our websites, has relevant message, talks about this time of year. We often ask questions of, why and why now, when we are kind of coaching nonprofits on on messaging within emails and donation pages, because we have to have a reason for asking during this season, and so ensuring that your why, that messaging is tight. We could do a whole lesson, Zach, on value proposition. We won't get fully into that, which is a whole other, extension of this. But we want to make sure that that message is appealing to a lot of folks. We want to make sure that it's very clear what we're communicating. What will my gift go towards? Let's ensure that people have a very clear understanding of that. Also, things like, how can I trust you? If you say that you're the largest ministry to do X, Y, and Z, that's great. That's amazing. But what's unique to you, and how can I believe that you're actually doing that work? So sometimes testimonials will help on donation pages, or things like that. So I would just think about the experience on your donation page and ensure that there's a why there, which a lot of folks think that people are ready to give once they get to the donation page, but we know for a fact that is not true. And I tell you that because the data tells us that only 13.5% of traffic to the donation page is actually converting and making a gift. 13.5. So they have not decided to make a gift once they get to that donation page, even though they saw an email or social post, whatever the thing is. So we've got to continue to reinforce the why, and then the why now. December 31st. there's an urgency there. There's a deadline, and people are motivated by deadlines and urgency. And so even just referencing December 31st, that is your goal. And again, why do you have this goal? What is the money going towards? Is just really important that we're very clear in what we're communicating to folks. So, why now, and ensuring that that value proposition is tight.
Yeah, so like I always like to say we need X by Y for Z.
That's great.
And that just makes it crystal clear. So
Yeah.
it's like, hey, if you give this, then it will create more kids in our after school program, or it will
Mm,
serve more single moms, or it will send a kid to camp. So I just think that that helps out a donor so much because you
absolutely.
are being absolutely open about what you're trying to raise, by when, and for what.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think Zach, that whole idea too, that we start to assume people know what their gift is going to go towards, or even like what we do, even if they've been a donor for many years. But I can't underscore the importance of reinforcing all of that, because they might see it through a new lens at this time of year, So, that why now, and having great clarity and transparency, I think, is critical.
that's awesome, Courtney. This will be my last question, but can you tell me just some things that you have seen not-for-profits do? I don't necessarily want to say do wrong, but the things that they could have done better. Maybe I'll say it that way.
Yeah, sure. Maybe they could put their focus in other areas, or
Yeah, yeah,
I think that there's an interesting conversation actually happening right now because of the year end season, around important days of giving. So you might be familiar with, it's a day that has grown in popularity and knowledge, and people just being aware of it, is Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is a national day of giving, that somewhere, somehow, someone made up, which is fine. I'm all about it. But this is one of those things, like, someone said it and now it is, and now everyone feels like they need to embrace it. And what we're seeing, and now in our benchmark study, is supporting our kind of like, is this really happening, or is this what's happening in our space? Is that people are putting a greater importance on Giving Tuesday, and Giving Tuesday every year falls the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. And the reason why they created it was because of, all of the Cyber Mondays and Black Fridays, the consumers, and they're trying to, like, kind of go against the grain and say, well, you just spent all this money in consumerism. What about this, day to give back to causes that you align with and believe in? Again, I love the idea behind it, but everyone feels like they need to put such a focus on it that we actually lose sight of some of the most critical times a year. Because remember, we look at year end as November 15th through the December 31st. And the reason why I'm concerned about this, and that it's an area where people are probably need to pivot some of their focus, is that Giving Tuesday, while it is important, while I think you should be a part of it, brings in 5% of revenue. 5%. Okay. As opposed to December 24th through December 30th, brings in 32% of revenue. And then even on December 31st, the very last day of the year, the last day of calendar year end, brings in 14% of revenue. So December 31st brings in nearly 3 times the amount as Giving Tuesday. But what we're seeing is that organizations are only focusing in on Giving Tuesday and not even sending communications from the 24th through the 31st. And that is concerning to me, because we've gotten kind of like wrapped up in the hype of this Giving Day, which is important and you should be a part of. But we forget about the real critical time is December 24th through the 31st. And so I just want to like throw that out there because we got that data back and it just made me kind of in shock and awe of what's going on in this space. So we want to make sure that we're incorporating both giving days, but we want to prioritize our communications in that last week of the year.
Yeah, for sure. I forgot how I always did it, but I think I sent, obviously I had a goal, and I sent an email like the day before Christmas. Merry Christmas. I hope all is well. Then I think I sent an email on the 27th, and then I think I sent an email on like the 30th, and then the 31st, just to give people, because there's so much going on. I mean, you've got Christmas, and you are trying to go out of town, and you've got parties and things like that. And so I know for me, the my biggest lie is I just don't want to bother them.
Mm,
But I have never had anyone come up to me and be like, "Hey man, you're bothering me with the emails." Like
yeah.
most people are like, "Oh man, I totally forgot. Thank you so much." So it is super important to have like, okay, I'm going to make this ask on this day, and this ask on this day, and this ask on this day. And sometimes it is an ask, and sometimes it's just hey guys, how's it going? It's Zach.
Yeah, right.
Um, but yeah,
Well, and I think that's it too, Zach, is that if we've done our work in cultivating that relationship, they're not when they see your name in the inbox, the goal is not to make them cringe and hit delete or say, "Oh, not another email from Zach again." That they're like, "Oh, what does Zach have to say?" Regardless of what's happening in the season or busyness and all of that. And so, your strategy is awesome. That's fantastic. That's an easy implementation for most folks listening. I would say the other thing too is like diversifying how you make the ask. So, you know, and even who it's being sent from. We get lots of questions of like, should all of these come from one person? And we're like, well, no, I would send from probably two to three people at max, but maybe two, so that you can diversify who's in the inbox. But also don't just have the one person, let's say that you and I are the senders of the emails and I'm the one who's only ever asking for money. I'm going to delete an email from my name once I see it, right? So we've got to diversify what you're sending from each person. If Zach's only ever sending cultivation and I'm only sending appeals, well, we know who they're going to actually listen to or read, from. So that's like diversifying who you're sending to and then how you're asking, because what might motivate me to give maybe a story of impact that you're communicating versus why you might give Zach, let's say maybe it's you've outlined what your goals are for the next year. That might not be motivating to me, but man, this story that I just read really kind of got me, and this is what's going to get me to support the cause. And so you've got to make sure that your message is also diversified as you look to plan out that calendar, especially focused on that last week.
yeah. And what I love about Next After is you guys have helped me so much in regards to how to set up my website, how to set up
Mm.
my donation page, how an email should look.
Mm.
Like that was crazy to me. I'm like, oh, okay, well, wait. If I add a picture, then people give this much. But if I don't add a picture, people give this much. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? That is wild. So, guys, if you're tuning into the podcast, go check out Next After. They have a lot of awesome things for free, and you guys can learn so much about how to build relationships with people so that they can support you and so that they can receive that kind of value and that kind of impact. So super grateful for y'all.
Thank you. With honestly, like I say, it's our ministry. Like this is why we do it,
Yeah,
because we want to help as many nonprofits as possible. So
it's great. Thank you, Courtney.
awesome.
Um, all right. Well, thanks again for your time, guys. And the viewers here, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to me, Zach at You Can Mentor, ZACH, or check out Next After. They have a lot of awesome stuff. And if you guys only take away one thing, remember this: you can mentor.